So our main news this morning is that mothers suffering from postnatal depression and also anorexic teenagers are to get extra help as part of what David Cameron will today call a revolution in Britain's treatment of mental illness.
Also included in the government's plans to improve people's chances in life are the opportunity of parenting lessons for everybody and a promise to knock down or improve run-down council estates. Well, Paul Brand is live in one of the council estates possibly affected by these announcements. Paul, a lot of different measures under the same banner. What is the overriding theme of what the government's trying to do here?
Good morning, Piers. Yeah, lots of ideas, all with one aim, which is tackling poverty. Whether it's mental health problems, whether it's poor parenting or estates with dark corridors that encourage crime, David Cameron thinks all of these things hold people back in life. Now, critics say this sounds a bit like the nanny state, particularly those parenting classes with the government stepping in and telling parents how to bring up their kids. But with Labour spending so much time talking about their leader at the moment, David Cameron feels poverty could be his issue.
David Cameron insists mental health isn't catching, but poverty can be. So today he'll promise extra help for new mothers struggling to cope so their babies aren't limited in life. But campaigners are sceptical.
Mental health services have been Cinderella services for so long that actually I think the long-term investment that's required and the culture change is not going to be solved by one announcement.
There is more to today's speech. David Cameron will promise to redevelop so-called sink estates where poverty is rife, tackle other illnesses like eating disorders with £1 billion extra for mental health, and expand parenting classes and relationship counselling to keep families together. But some say that last part is patronising.
The way in which you do it has to be really carefully thought through, and also so it doesn't appear to be condescending or this is how you should be doing it or you're doing something wrong.
Labour say the government's actually cutting help like benefits, and instead of releasing families from poverty, it's only trapping them further. Paul Brand, Good Morning Britain.
The government's announced a new set of measures aimed at tackling poverty and family breakdown. Among them, parenting classes and relationship counselling.
They've also pledged millions towards knocking down and redeveloping some of the country's most run-down council estates. Well, Luke Farrington took a tour of one local community to see if they'd welcome the measures.
I grew up around the estate all my life. Used to be really bad. I didn't get the chance to go out and play because it was that bad.
Most of our problems were drugs, syringes being left. We got the money, it was regeneration. But then I went and did a door knock and asked everybody, what is it is wrong and what is it that we need most? You have to live it to know it.
This idea of giving people relationship advice, is it kind of patronising people and saying, well, we all, this is what we think is wrong with you?
Unfortunately, some of the parents you're going to go to are either drugged up or full of drink or don't give a damn anyway.
There's drug dealers, there's crackheads, there's crack bottles. I think that you need to tidy up the area rather than just making it look pretty.
Cameron should ask the tenants, not give us, we want to do this for your estate, we want to do that.
And ask our kids what's wrong. They know it before anybody else does. They'll tell you what's wrong. Give them a voice.
What would make your life better?
Just people being more nicer and getting together more.
Well, joining us now is the Education Secretary, Nicky Morgan. Welcome to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. If I was on one of these estates, hearing the Prime Minister say, I'm going to teach you how to be a parent, I'd be saying, well, hang on a sec, aren't you the bloke who left his kid in a pub?
Well, hang on a second, they're two very different things. I mean, what the Prime Minister is saying rightly today builds on the party conference speech.
You didn't even laugh when I said that, by the way.
I'm sorry, Piers, it's a bit early. I haven't had enough caffeine this early in the morning.
A little wry smile would have sufficed.
But it's building on speech from party conference, and this is about tackling the things that hold people back. So I think, obviously, mental health, but in terms of the estates and the parenting classes, they could be the same people affected, but they could be very different people as well. But there's no doubt where people live affects, you just heard at the end there, that little girl talking about community. But we also know that being a parent is hard. They don't arrive with a guidebook. And actually, it's not just about the birth, it's also about the years afterwards.
Right, but it all sounds great, right? Except that you've been on this rodeo before, haven't you? Because, 3 years ago, the Can Parent pilot was set up, which was supposed to help 3 underprivileged areas with parenting. And about 20,000 were expected to take part. In the end, it was just under 3,000. Nobody really wanted to do it. How are you going to make people who might be feckless parents? And again, the idea I totally approve of. But how do you actually make them do this?
Well, I think it's about putting it in a wider context. So obviously, as Education Secretary, I can say to parents, look, actually, the things that you do early on with your children make a huge difference to the education attainment, their education attainment, how they do at school. So talking to your children, helping them to practice with, building blocks and Lego, all those things make a big difference.
But you're not going to send people to parenting classes and teach them to talk to their children, are you?
No, it's a whole range of different things. And it depends obviously on the age of the child. As we also know, actually, there's obviously the early years, but actually it gets hard as they get older, as they get more influences from outside.
No,
but also what the Prime Minister...
But can I just point... One of the lovely people we spoke to on that estate just mentioned the fact that, part of the problem is some of these parents might have a drug problem, some of them might have a drink problem. A lot of those parents are not going to be taking up vouchers to go to parenting classes. And the ones who do think, oh, I'd like to know how to talk to my children or help them with building blocks, they're probably not the ones you need to go to parenting classes.
Well, actually, it's a whole range of different parents. But, of course, one of the other things we'll be talking about today...
But it's not a whole range of different parents, is it? It's the parents who find it really hard, who may come from chaotic backgrounds themselves, who are not the sort of parents who are going to be taking up the offer of parenting classes. And they're exactly the sort of parents that you need to take up these classes.
We know there is a huge appetite amongst parents and amongst families for this kind of practical support.
But Piers has just pointed out there isn't a huge appetite.
Well, in the last Parliament, the relationship counselling on offer helped 160,000 families. So there is appetite. Now, it depends obviously on how it's delivered, where it's delivered, is it accessible to the community, is it at places where parents and families are already going, rather than people having to, as you say, make perhaps special trips. But there is a huge appetite for this. And there's also announcements today about how we help parents and families tackle addiction, both drug and alcohol, but also support them with mental health. The whole point about this government's poverty strategy, tackling and boosting life chances, is not just about one thing. It's about lots of things.
Isn't it slightly patronising, if you don't mind me saying, to call it a poverty strategy, as if somehow, if you're poor, then you are instinctively not as good at parenting as if you're very wealthy. And again, I come back to my slightly facetious joke about the Prime Minister, but he was seen in public, despite having about 1,000 bodyguards, leaving his child in a pub. So this can happen to the wealthiest and most intelligent members of society as much as perhaps the poor and disadvantaged, can't it?
That's what I was just saying. Actually, there are a range of different parents and different families and circumstances who I think will be attracted by the idea and actually will welcome that additional support that is on offer. But it's about a whole range of different things that affect families.
Let me just move on quickly, because there's a story in your area breaking today, national crisis looming in teaching, all the teacher unions getting together to say morale's never been worse, they want more money, we're losing all our top teachers. The buck stops with you. What are you going to do, and what is your reaction to this?
Well, my reaction to this, actually, we are already doing a huge amount to tackle these issues. We know that teacher recruitment is a challenge, particularly in parts of the country and particularly in certain subjects. We're already tackling issues around workload, things like data collection.
But you've limited their pay rises to 1% or less for the past 5 years. The government aims to keep this to that limit for the next 4 years. They say it's simply not enough, and if you don't fix that and correct it and give them more money, we're going to lose a lot more good teachers. Is that true, and do you intend to negotiate with them to actually increase these limits that have been set?
Well, I talk to the teaching unions all of the time. They know very well that the pay rises and the pay limitations are set as overall as part of our strategy about getting the economy back into balance, which is what we were re-elected to do last May. But we also offer very generous bursaries for certain subjects, where we've sort of set up something called the National Teaching Service to help heads and teachers in difficult parts of the country.
Will you give them any more money?
Well, we've already said we're going to protect schools' budgets throughout the rest of this Parliament. Schools will see their budgets rising in real terms. Well, they've had the 1%, but that is the same across the whole of the public sector.
So no special treatment to keep these teachers.
We work very hard with teachers all the time, because teaching is a fantastic profession. They make a huge difference
and final,
to the future of this country.
Word, do you have any particular parenting lesson you'd like to give out for how to stop leaving your children in pubs?
I wouldn't dare to offer such advice.
If you advise the Prime Minister, count the number of kids, put them in the car, count again.
Best advice is probably best not to. Nicky Morgan, thank you so much indeed.